All right, learning more and crossing live to syndicated radio host Cary Harrison here, joining us here on RT International. Great to be on with you, a voice very well known all the way from America's East Coast to the West. Great to have you on the program for the breaking news coverage tonight, Cary. Many say that Gorbachev helped to prevent a potential World War III. But at the same time, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the people of Russia went through immense hardships and the economic chaos of the 1990s. Looking at Russia now, how would you compare contemporary Russia to that of the crumbling Soviet Union?
Well, that's a complicated question, but I'm certainly glad you asked it. Quite clearly at the time, to sort of start with what you were saying, during the fall, there was an enormous amount of Soviet troops, weaponry, unimaginable force able to be used. Had it been used, it's widely accepted that we probably would have ended up in World War III, in which case you and I would not be talking today. So probably a good thing that, that kind of effort was withheld. How do things turn out and play out today? Well, it's a tough call. I would give credit to Ronald Reagan for having listened to Dr. Helen Caldicott from Australia, who informed him that the first thing that happens to a man when nuclear particles are emitted into the atmosphere is it affects a man's testicles. She knew that all men would cross their legs and step back, and Ronald Reagan was affected by that so much that he reached out to Gorbachev and started these talks. Likewise, in 2021, Russia actually reached out to the United States to try to reestablish the post-Cold War security agreement that was had, but Antony Blinken said later in January, no way. NATO is going to do whatever NATO wants, and here we are today.
What do you think about, when you say here we are today, there are many that have said that the Cold War Part 2 has already been in effect for a number of years already. You might even want to go back to, I don't know, the Maidan Revolution in Kiev back in 2014. The situation today has been referred to as a Cold War. Of course, during the time of Gorbachev, it was de facto a Cold War. That's what it was all called. How is it, though, different between Gorbachev and Putin today? Well, what's changed with the relationship between Washington and Moscow? Because it's pretty clearly not as friendly as it once was.
Well, no. And I think when the U.S. would engage Russia, say back in 1978 in Afghanistan, it was done way over there, wherever over there is, out of sight, out of mind. We had our issue in Cuba during the Kennedy administration. That was perilously close to the U.S. citizens, and people were terrified. This is now across Europe. The United States has military bases, the most ever in all of human history, dotted around Earth. So it feels, again, very close to us and our government and our defense contractors. And I'm not saying we're necessarily at fault, because it happens all over the world the same way. But there's a lot of money to be made on an endless war that hopefully doesn't really accelerate into something. So it's a cold, hot war, maybe a warm war, a hot war for those standing there, a warm war for those watching it on television.
What do you think, though, you look back at the legacy of Gorbachev and other post-Soviet countries. I mean, is it fair to say that the death of Gorbachev does symbolize the end of an era, do you think?
Well, I think many would have that opinion. I happen to have a rubber Gorbachev right here that I got years and years ago. And, I mean, he was considered a really cool guy here in the U.S. because we had never seen a Soviet leader ever willing to talk, or at least that we were being told publicly, was willing to talk and actually change things around, open things up. Open is probably considered pretty good. If you're a live human being, you probably want openness. So it was, he did an amazing thing, amazing feats. Would that sort of attitude be considered friendly these days toward a lot of people, especially in Europe? Yes, I think they'd probably like to see that. But there's certainly plenty of mystique now with all governments. People are harsh leaders. We don't have access to them anymore. They're not willing to really talk to us except lecture to us, much as I might sound to somebody. So Gorbachev, I think, leaves a good taste in a lot of people's mouth.
Cary Harrison, a syndicated radio host, joining us live here on RT International from the Sunshine State. Appreciate it. Thanks for your perspective.